Well, part of the journey, as always, is the end. The Pittsburgh Penguins fall to the New York Rangers 4-3 in overtime of Game 7, and they vanquish another lead. That's three elimination games in a row where the Penguins probably should have had it, and they gave it away. For today's episode, I'm going to fully recap that game, where it went wrong for the Penguins, what I liked about the Penguins' performance, and then do a small off-season preview, just my first thoughts about potentially what to expect over the off-season. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Today's episode is brought to you by, just almost screwed that up there. BetOnline. BetOnline is covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. So it's off-season time. The Penguins, of course, as I said in my intro, they fall 4-3 in overtime of Game 7 against the Rangers. Brock McGinn took a stupid penalty. The Penguins PK screwed them all series, and it screwed them once again with that final goal from Letang and Malkin, who actually decided to show up because in the first 6 games he was absolutely awful. But after that loss, I didn't really scream or anything, which is, it's new for me, I guess, the last 3 years, because when I was a kid, I would just get so mad for so long. I wouldn't be over these losses for like a week or two, potentially more. Now, 12 hours later, or that's almost 24 hours now, I move on with my life. I'm going to be 25 this year. There's just so much more to live for than to just get mad online about, a 7-game series going nowhere. I mainly just got sad just because of the core. 3 players who have, blessed my life for the last 16 years, who have blessed everyone's life that listens to this show and all Penguins fans around the world for the best 16 years this franchise has ever seen. I mean, I understand Mario and Yager did their thing back in the 90s, and Joe Mullen was there, Artie Stevens, Marty Straka, Paul Coffey, Tom Barrasso, all these guys were just ridiculously good, but, they didn't have a record of success like the Penguins had right here in this Sid Gino era. And I just got sad just because this could be the end. I still remember, watching the games with my mom when I was 7 to 8 years old, that first Stanley Cup run in 2006-07 when they got bullied by the Senators. Was a welcome to the playoffs moment, but the 08 team was so much fun. The 09 team was obviously great. I had a blast watching them in the 2010s and all that. And, I know I watched the team before Crosby got there. I was a much smaller kid, but I remember everything about watching the team in the Sid Gino era. I mean, these 3 players are, partly responsible for me, being the fan I am today and, pursuing a degree in journalism and pursuing a chance to do this show. And I can't thank them enough for everything they've done, for the city, the organization, the fans, everything. It feels like this could be it for all 3 here. And it makes me sick to my stomach to say that because they've been so good for so long. I mean, Chris Letang just had probably the best season of his career outside of his 2016 season, set a career high in points. His underlying numbers were fantastic. He'll probably finish top 10 in the Norris Trophy voting. Sidney Crosby had another tremendous season. He was well over a point per game. He probably finishes close to 100 points if he doesn't miss the first couple weeks of the season. Evgeny Malkin was a point per game player at 35 years old. He's obviously not what he used to be, but he's still a pretty damn good player. And if one or both of Letang or Malkin are gone, it's going to put a wrench into my childhood, a wrench into the team. There's the potential for there to be a lot of changes with this team. And I really thought this team could go on a run here. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. Going into the playoffs, I said they looked cooked because, I didn't think they would be able to flip a switch. Once that switch was flipped, I definitely thought they could have gone on a run. It was just, again, in this series, I thought the Penguins outplayed the Rangers more than they outplayed the Islanders last year. But again, they got dug in by goaltending, and their special teams stunk. And sometimes those two things out triumph 5v5 play. I know most of the game is played at 5v5. That's where most of it is won. But if you're not good at your special teams, which the Penguins were not in this series, even though their special teams were really good during this the regular season, and you don't have good goaltending, and I know it's hard because the Penguins did not have both their goaltenders for the six of the 7 games, or almost 6 of the 7 games. It's a hard series to win. They did all they could on Igor Shesterkin. They put up, I believe, 25 goals in 7 games on him. That is very good against the Vezina Trophy winner and a potentially Hart Trophy winner. That should be enough. Again, if Tristan Jarry starts this series, they probably win. Obviously, that's fantasy land right now. I'm not going to live in that. We're going to live in the actual moment here where the Penguins lost this series. It's unfortunate that the Penguins, I thought, brutally outplayed them. But again, they didn't get the result. It has nothing to do with Mike Sullivan or, any of the forwards who I thought most of them played really well. I thought most of the defense was fine. They just, they blew leads. Their special teams weren't that. And, Louis Domingue couldn't make, the saves that he needed to. And, I've noticed people have come into my mentions about this. They've said, well, Hunter, what do you expect? He's a third string goalie. And while I understand that point, I'll come back with this. Domingue has over 100 plus games of NHL experience under his belt. He has 2 seasons worth of 35 plus games individually as a backup goaltender. You know what his save percentage in those 2 seasons was? 910. That's league average. If he is literally 910 in this series, the Penguins win game 5. But he had to be 888 and give up probably some goals that I think a 15-year-old could save. Or honestly, an ECH goaltender could save. Game 6 even. That game looks like it's going to overtime. If he makes that save on Chris Kreider, again, the Penguins have a 50-50 shot of winning that game in overtime. Heck, who knows if they do? I mean, they weren't given the chance because that goaltending stunk there. But we'll never know if they would have won that game in game 6. I mean, it's a terrible goal to allow. So that is my counter for the people that want to, I guess, the Louis Domingue apologists, I guess, if that's what you want to call them. But, just sad for the core, sad for Mike Sullivan because his system obviously works. Sidney Crosby was sensational in this series, 10 points, tied for 5th all time for most playoff points by an NHL player. Evgeny Malkin had 6 points in 7 games. Letang, I thought, was fine. Those are the 3 players I'm mainly sad about because, I wanted them to go out with 4. 3 is obviously great. I mean, we are so spoiled in this town here, guys. 3 Stanley Cups, 4 Stanley Cup final appearances, 5 Eastern Conference Finals appearances, 20 series wins, 16 years in a row in the playoffs. You will never see this kind of success with the Pittsburgh Penguins ever again. So while it definitely stings right now that they lost this series, trust me, it's still stinging me a little bit. And I know it's stinging all of you. Just be grateful of what we've been able to watch over the last 16 years, to say the least. So I want to start off the episode just by shouting out the core, thanking them that if this is it, I've had the time of my life watching them. They've brought so much happiness and joy to me over the last 16 years of my life, and I know they've done that for all of you too. So coming up in the next segment, where I'm going to get into everything that went right and everything that went wrong for the Penguins in Game 6, go over some obvious situations that were big in that game. But before I do that, our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. You can head to the website today or use your phone to learn more about the trends in action. That has BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. All right, let's get into, the full game here. Just, everything that was going right for the Penguins and went wrong. So, starts out bad. Tristan Jarry gives up that goal to Chris Kreider. Heck of a shot from Kreider. I mean, I'm not really going to fault Tristan for that. It's one of like the first big chances he's seen. Also, I'm not going to really sit here for people dumping on the guy. It was obvious Tristan was not 100%. The guy, for God's sakes, the guy had an ice pack on his foot walking to the press conference area, and it looked like he couldn't even walk. That bone was probably still a little bit broken. The fact that he was even playing 4 weeks after that injury is nothing short of a miracle. And yes, at the time, I said, why couldn't he play on Friday? Well, I guess we found out our answer. They were hoping to save him for the next round, those previous 2 games, because wow, yeah, he was definitely hurting there. The Penguins were able to tie it 1-1 off Danton Heinen, and the power play finally strikes, even though they were absolutely terrible in this series. Penguins then make it 2-1 off of Jake Guentzel's ridiculous goal, kicks it up to himself, goes bar down with the stick. It looked like it was a little bit high, but it was honestly such a close call. I'm not going to entertain the thoughts from these Rangers fans that want to continue to whine and complain about officiating. You won the series. Stop complaining about it. Well, the Penguins were on the 50-50 side for all these calls. I mean, why even feel the need to say that? It's just like, I don't have time for these people. Most of these calls were very obvious. That one last night was probably 50-50. It went the Penguins' way. Get over it. You won the game. And then the Mike Matheson experience comes in. Puck goes off his skate. That's probably the 10th time that it's happened this series. Evan Rodriguez comes back with 3-2. And boom, we get to the big deciding moment in this game. So the Penguins playing a really structured third period, not getting as much offensive zone time as I wanted them to, but still pretty good. Defensively, they're playing very sound. They're not letting the Rangers get a lot of chances outside of that Tyler Mott short-handed breakaway. Tristan Jarry made that nice save. But so they've started to get some zone time around the 6-minute mark. And obviously, Alexis Lafreniere got away with a penalty there. It was intentional. There was nothing accidental about it. That is a penalty. It should have been called. Whatever. He could have put his helmet back on. Maybe he didn't know the rule. If he does that, Chris Letang doesn't have to come back on the ice, excuse me. That said, Letang was able to get in position, but it was more so John Marino's fault, who had a tremendous series that led to that goal being scored. I know what Mike Sullivan said about the rule after the game. He said it stinks. I know what Sid said after the game. He thinks that cost him the game. They're entitled to their opinion. Again, it potentially cost them the game, but I think what was more egregious was Marino's turnover. He's at a puck battle in the corner, 6-minute mark left. You have to keep playing defense. They're going to pull their goalie probably in the next 3 to 4 minutes. And Marino puts the puck to the middle of the ice. I think he's trying to get it to Letang, and it gets intercepted. Zibanejad gets it. I'll tip my cap to him. He was awful in the first 5 games. Game 6 plays well. Game 7, roofs that shot off Tristan Jarry. I don't know if a lot of goalies are stopping that. That it was just a very nice shot. I mean, Jarry's glove wasn't even in position. It went just a little to the side of it. It's a play that Marino can't make. He has to either, trap it in the corner or send it around the boards to keep it out of a high danger area, because that was a prime high danger scoring chance for the Rangers in a game where the Rangers did not have many. Through 2 periods at all situations, the Penguins had 17 of the 20 high danger chances. They were brutally outplaying them. Igor Shesterkin was doing his thing for the first time in this series, and the Penguins were not able to get that big insurance goal that they needed going into the third period, or even during the third period, to go up 2. If they are up 2 in that situation, they probably win that game. They weren't able to do it, and at the end of the day, they lost. But that's a play that Marino can't make. And I'm not here to really dump on him. I thought he had a tremendous series. He was leading all defensemen in the playoffs with expected goals for. I think Pettersson was in the top 10 too. This was probably some of the finest hockey I've seen John play. It's just, that's a play you can't make in the playoffs. You have to play it safe there. You are less than 6 minutes away from winning a game 7 on the road at Madison Square Garden. The Rangers crowd was really not into it as much at that point. You got to just make a better decision. Okay, game goes to overtime. Penguins get a chance here or there. The Rangers didn't really get a lot. And then Brock McGinn steps onto the ice. Brock, obviously, friend of the show, had a blast interviewing him. He's a really nice guy. But he cannot make that play at the blue line. That was a horrendous error. You're not Sidney Crosby. You're not Evgeny Malkin. You're not Jake Guentzel. You're not Brian Rust. You're not Ricard Raquel. You are not one of the better puck movers on this team. You are a bottom six winger, and your job in that situation is to dump the puck in. The Rangers do not get that power play and win if he just dumps the puck in. But he tried to be a little cute and be the hero, and then Keandre Miller comes in on a breakaway, and McGinn has to hold him, draws the penalty. Miller does. And honestly, Jens, McGinn is lucky that was not a penalty shot there. Johnny Gaudreau had a penalty shot for something a lot less in his series against the Dallas Stars for the Flames. I will say that. The refs that was very lucky that there was not a penalty shot there. Maybe in hindsight, it could have been better because maybe Tristan Jarry comes up with a save. Maybe he doesn't. And then the penalty kill, it screwed them all overall series, and it screwed them there. And that is one of the biggest reasons, again, why they lost this series. The Penguins' special teams stunk. The PK coming into Game 7, the Rangers power play at least, 5 for 15. That is 33.3%. You are not going to win many playoff series if you I'm like getting mad just thinking about it. You are not going to win a lot of series if that's how your PK is going to perform. Heck, look at the Capitals. They killed off every single Panthers power play, and it didn't matter because of how good the Panthers were at 5v5. But the reason they were close in that series and almost took a 3-1 series lead was because of how good their special teams were. If the Penguins were even closer to what the Capitals were doing special teams-wise in this series, the Penguins probably win this series. But they were able to kill off the first Rangers power plays, even though they got lucky because Jarry was just bailing them out with save after save like he did at times during the regular season. I'm not a big X's and O's guy, but the Penguins were giving them way too much space throughout this series. There was hardly any pressure. I think they were kind of just trying to collapse in front of Domingue and block all the shots, and especially true with Jarry last night. You got to play a little more aggressive for that unit and make life a living hell for them. The Rangers had very easy zone entries. When they were also dumping the puck in, they were recovering it every single time. The Penguin skaters were not challenging them, and it led them getting to quality scoring chances on every single power play. Heck, I'm surprised their percentage was not higher. And again, they lost the series because of a power play goal against, even though there was only 10 seconds left on it. It's just, it was not good enough. And I expect better from a unit that was finished third in the NHL this year. Mike Vellucci has some questions to answer about that. That's all I have to say. Power play, it stunk all series. The first unit was out to lunch every time. I mean, remember, Game 5, you have a 5-on-3 for 2 minutes and you get like 2 shots. Game 6, the game's tied 2-2. Minute 7 of a 5-on-3 power play time, even without Sidney Crosby, you can't even get a shot. Not good enough. The second unit had more power play goals in this series than the first unit. That's awful. I mean, I'm sorry. Like that is unacceptable from a team that had that much talent on their top power play for it to look that lethargic. I think Tar Reardon definitely has some questions to answer about that because that was not the power play that I saw during the regular season. Obviously, goaltending. I know that plays a part too. Domingue, again, I already said my piece on him early on here. Just did not make enough routine saves. Jarry, I thought he was fine last night. Maybe wants a goal or two back, but I'm not really going to crucify a guy that was his first game back in about 4 weeks. I thought Jake Guentzel was tremendous in this series. I never want to see anyone say that he doesn't perform in the playoffs ever again. He had 8 goals in this series. The only player to have more goals in a series in Penguins history is Mario Lemieux. Had 9, I believe, in the 1989 series against the Philadelphia Flyers. Jake was a one-man wrecking crew in this series. Just a tremendous player. He's never been a product of Sidney Crosby. He can play with anyone and elevate their game. And I hope a national audience got to see how good he is and see what we all are seeing, to say the least. Sid was Sid. I thought Gino was good. I think people need to readjust their expectations. Okay, I'm going to save that coming up for my final segment because I'm going to get to my early offseason thoughts, and that's going to include what I'm going to say on Evgeny Malkin. But I think the biggest thing here on this series is just a wasted opportunity. You have a 3-1 series lead. You have 3 leads in a row in elimination games. 2 of them were multi-goal leads with less than 2 periods to play. the other one with less than 6 minutes to play in the third period. You got to close it down. You know, the 2016 and 2017 teams win those games. And I know they had, obviously, Matt Murray in for most of those games. They had Marc-Andre Fleury in for some of those games too. But at the end of the day, you got to win at least one of those games. You can't blow leads like that in the playoffs. I mean, it's bad. You know, I'm not obviously, I know they had a lot of injuries. I know they're playing a third string goaltender, but I expect you to at least close down one of those games, in my opinion. Coming up in the final segment, I am going to get into my early offseason thoughts and, you know, where the team should go from here. And yes, there's already a whole bunch of rumors about the Penguins offseason. I'm going to get to those as well. Why some of them may be a bit of BS, but you know, whatever. But before I get to that, imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting and then opening your eyes and realizing that it was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That is what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. I just received my birthday cake puffs, and I've never had anything like this before. They are available right now, and we can't promise that they will be there tomorrow, so go get them today at Built.com. Make every day your birthday with Built's birthday cake puffs. They've taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake and enrobed it in 100% white chocolate and added sprinkles. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. You can go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's get to my Hunter's early offseason thoughts. Okay, let's start with Mike Sullivan. If you are saying Mike Sullivan should be fired, you are deranged. I will not take your opinion seriously. It is wrong. If anyone tells you that Mike Sullivan should be fired, tell them they are wrong. His system obviously works. It is not his fault he was getting bad goaltending from a third string goaltender, or that, that's the main reason. Or that, honestly, his special teams failed him because, Tar Reardon coaches the power play, Mike Vellucci coaches the penalty kill. Sullivan's, he does all the other stuff with his system and just everything else that has to do with your game on the ice, mainly the 5-on-5 play. I am not going to blame Sullivan for how this series went. This is 2 years in a row now where the Penguins have had the better of the play, and they haven't gotten on the right side of it because their goaltending has honestly not been that good. And, a couple other reasons. There's no other reasons. The Penguins aren't built for the playoffs or anything. I saw that take from someone last night, and it's just a load of BS. I mean, at the end of the day, they got out goaltended because they haven't gotten good goaltending since 2018. Matt Murray was pretty good in that 2018 run. It was just Washington's year. 2019, I thought Murray was fine. Probably could have been a bit better. The last 3 years, though, they've gotten rotten goaltending. There's really not much else to explain than that. The Penguins finishing was actually pretty good in this series compared to what it was in the early parts during the regular season. I will not sit here and stand for Mike Sullivan slander. If you think he should be fired, I would like for you to come up with names who you would replace him with. And if you think Barry Trotz is coming here, good luck. Winnipeg is calling his name. Philly is calling his name. And now Vegas is probably going to call his name. Okay. Free agent wise. Okay. The number one priority, I may get heat for this. The number one priority should be Chris Letang. I'm not going to sit here and argue with people that say, well, he's easily replaced and all this other nonsense, or, don't even argue with those people. Anyone who thinks Letang sucks and they could easily replace him, they're not worth responding to. They're casual fans who don't know what they're talking about. I would pay Chris Letang first. You cannot replace him. There's only John Klingberg on the market. He's going to get a lot of money from someone else, probably Seattle, and you have no one in-house that can do what he does with the minutes that he plays. There's probably going to be no one on the trade market that can also do what he does that will be available. He is and should be their number one priority this offseason. And obviously that's going to make Sidney Crosby happy because he gets to keep playing with one of his best friends, one of his favorite teammates. What I would give him a 3 to 4 year deal, maybe around, 4 times 8. I mean, that potentially can do it. I'm comfortable paying that, in my opinion. I mean, maybe the last year, is not so good, but with how great he was this past year, I think for at least half that deal, if not 2/3 of it, he's going to keep playing at a high level. I would sign Chris Letang every day if I could. So there's my number one thought on what they need to do there. As for Evgeny Malkin, I would bring him back. I would do 3 years, tie him to Sidney Crosby, which is what Elliot Friedman was reporting on 32 Thoughts today. I would give him the sweet spot for me, 6.5 to 7. I don't think any team, if he hits the free agent market, I don't think he would get like 7.5. I don't know if the Penguins would have to offer him that to stay here. You're not going to get a massive discount from him. You are going to get some sort of discount, but just because, his 5-on-5 play, still good, not what it used to be. His overall play, still really good, but he's not vintage Gino from what we saw, from 2009 to 2016 and honestly 2019. He's still obviously a great player. I love the guy, but he's definitely like at least lost a little bit of a step. I would give him a 3-year deal. Again, $6.5 million per if you can, upwards to 7. I think that's fair. Ties him to Sid. They'll both be free agents at the same time. They can potentially both retire. I think, in my opinion, that is totally okay. Malkin still is a difference maker on this team. Had a point per game during the regular season. Had basically a point per game in the playoffs. 3 goals, 6 points in 7 games. What I do think when if it happens and Gino comes back, people need to lower their expectations with him. He's no longer going to be worth $9.5 million. Obviously, he's not going to make that in his next contract. He's still a very good player. He is not that elite player that he used to be. I'm tired of people, just thinking he's going to be that when he's not that anymore. People just need to temper their expectations. Is he still going to be a point per game player? Yes. Is he still going to be a difference maker? Yes. Can he still play at 5v5? Yes, but not what he used to be. That's all fine. And I want them to sign him back. But again, I want people that, hate on him to just, you have to lower your expectations a little bit. This is not Sidney Crosby. He's a top 5 player in this franchise's history, but just because of what kind of player he is, his body breaks down a little faster than, someone like Sid, who's just, he's a menace. So I would still bring those two back. Brian Rust, I think he's gone. Detroit might be calling his name. He's going to get a lot of term and a lot of money. The Penguins are not going to be able to afford that. Evan Rodriguez, I would bring him back. I don't know how much money you can get him for. If you can do 3 to 3.5 million, I would probably do it. 3 would be the nice spot. 3.5, I would maybe, hopefully. 4, no. If he wants 4 million to let him walk, I'm not going to do that. Rickard Rakell, would love to bring him back to replace Brian Rust if you can get him on a 3 to 4 year deal, maybe $4 million per. I would do that. The Penguins are going to have to get creative with the salary cap, obviously. Kasperi Kapanen, he can walk. I would love for them to maybe explore. I hate saying this because I love the guy in Brock McGinn. If they can get out of that contract, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Brian Dumoulin, I think he could be trade bait. That $4 million is looking juicy, and his play has also been dipping down. I would definitely be curious to see if the Penguins try to use him as trade bait. I certainly would, to say the least. I think Jason Zucker, they may try to use him as trade bait. I personally would like him back. That's my opinion, though. Marcus Pettersson, I know his cap hits a bit much. I would keep him. Goaltending wise, I think they do need to bring in a veteran backup. Casey DeSmith is a UFA. I don't think he's going to come back. Louis Domingue is a UFA. I don't think he's coming back either. I definitely think they could use a backup. And I know people are going to point to, what about Marc-Andre Fleury? If he's signing for less than $2 million, go ahead, do it. But if it's more than that, I'll pass because he's kind of just washed at this point. This is going to be quite the offseason for the Penguins. Probably the busiest offseason that I've seen in my lifetime, just because this is such a pivotal point in the franchise's history. And I will not be afraid to say this. I am definitely a little uncomfortable with Ron Hextall and Brian Burke leading the charge for the most pivotal point in this franchise's history, or at least in the last 20 years. They've made good moves. They've made not so good moves, such as signing Brock McGinn after dumping Brandon Tanev and Jared McCann. The Jeff Carter extension was awful when he's not scoring goals. He's terrible. Protecting Kasperi Kapanen in the expansion draft, while it looked right at the time, it has definitely backfired in a big way. Excuse me. Just it's been hit or miss. I think with them, I know I listened to Rob Rossi on 93.7 The Fan today. He said Ryan Burke may not be back. Ron Hextall could be gone. Also said the Penguins lowballed Letang and Malkin 3 years, $15 million. I'm not sure how much I buy all that. I have a hard time believing you're going to offer only $5 million per contract to 2 year franchise cornerstones. Something about that seems fishy. I don't know if I'm going to fully believe that. Again, I don't believe everything I read or hear on the internet, but it's going to be busy. Keep it right here on Locked On Penguins. I got everything for you. I got all the offseason content coming. But lastly, though, I just want to thank all of you. You are the reason, the listeners, yes, you are the reason why I do this on an everyday basis every season. This was the 3rd season of the show. By far the most listened to season of the show, and it grew in ways that I never thought it would. Top 5 in Apple Podcasts in the country last week during the playoffs, 99% audio audience increase, 526% YouTube audience increase. I love each and every one of you that take time out of your day to listen to me blabber about this team for 30 minutes. Without you all, there is no Locked On Penguins podcast. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for another amazing season talking about this team. I know I want a deep playoff run with this team for this podcast, especially because I'm tired of having early off seasons, but I have to hope that's going to come at some point here down the road. Again, thank you all so much for listening to this show this season. The grind does not stop. I have a lot of off-season content planned for you all. Player reviews, clean out day is obviously tomorrow. Free agents I would go after, trade rumors, all the silly stuff action is going to come your way. Again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for listening to another season. And, I'll continue to be 5 days a week until free agency. So I'll have another episode on Tuesday. Again, I love all of you. Thank you for another tremendous season covering this team.